Hi, this is Phoenix, and I'm going to talk about my mental disorder, schizoaffective disorder. Um, it's a complex topic, often misunderstood, but I'm going to try to talk about it with as much clarity as I can. Um, so, I want to start by just talking kind of autobiographically of my experience today, um, just to share it. There's no grand philosophical implication with this story, but I think it's important that I share this story just to communicate some of the unbelievable frustrations and even uh, the the fear that comes from having a mental illness and being treated, um, as well as some of the dilemmas that are created. So um, for the past, like, I would say maybe year or so, um, I've kind of been having trouble. I usually have trouble before I go to bed. The issue is that it's hard for my mind to shut down, and this makes it hard for me to get some sleep. I'm able to keep it pretty well under control. But I was hoping today that when I went into my appointment to talk to my psychiatrist, that I would be able to um, tweak my meds a little bit to kind of stabilize things better. But let's just suffice to say that the conversation did not go well. And here's why. From my perspective, I felt that all the psychiatrist was doing was recommending medications without telling me what that would mean and what that would require of me, as well as scaring me with the side effects of the medications that I'm already on and the side effects in general. So, as an example of kind of what happened, I uh, told him that I was having some delusions, that I was having a little bit of paranoia. And I noticed that as soon as I said that, his immediate thought was, well, he immediately pinpointed the symptom, so that means we need to put him on more medication. And so he started recommending all these medications, but literally all the medications that he seemed to recommend were either ones that like I was scared to take. So for instance, he recommended a shot, and I don't know why he recommended a shot because I take my medication responsibly. But that just scared me because of my past experiences with being on a shot and how painful that was. Um, uh, and then also, aside from that, he was talking about uh, medications in terms of ones that I've already taken. So he was talking about like maybe taking Zyprexa, which I didn't want to take because I gained a lot of weight in the past with that medication. And he also recommended other medications that I'd taken in the past but that didn't work. So like Risperidol, I had a really bad allergic reaction to that medication. He also told me about the side effects of the medications I'm on. So I'm on Valium, and I take that for sleep, surprisingly enough, but also to calm me down, but mostly for sleep. Um, but um, the problem is that he told me that I'm pretty sure he said that with me being on Valium, I have a 50% chance of developing Alzheimer's. And so, as you can imagine, that was pretty scary to think about that, to think that I might be developing some. And it sucks too because that was exactly what the doctor before that had told me. And it's even worse because I got on Valium because I couldn't sleep and because my doctor that I had before thought it was a good idea and he never told me about the side effects. And so I don't, so essentially they contradicted themselves in a way because one said that this medication would be good. The other people, though, have said that it's bad. And so really they created a dilemma, or at least at the very least you could say that I'm in a dilemma, which is trying to figure out what to do. Now, all of this could potentially be okay because this is why we talk about medication with our doctors to try to tweak it and to see what's working and what isn't. But I felt that all that I was being given was more medications that I needed to be taking, which would give me more side effects, or just telling me the side effects of medications and scaring me that way. And essentially, there wasn't enough time to voice my concerns. And that was really frustrating for me because I thought that I could talk, if I was honest about how I felt and how I was feeling about things, that it would work. But that wasn't the way that it was at all. So suffice today, suffice to say, today's experience was pretty discouraging. And like I said, there's no grand philosophical implication to the story, but it just kind of goes to show like why it sucks having a mental illness and being put in the system. And so one thing I was going to say too is that so I have a business card that has my information to buy my books. I have that on a card, but I was so discouraged with talking to the doctor that I didn't even give him my business card. I figured for one thing, he wouldn't take me seriously, you know, because he just sees someone with symptoms and sees someone with a mental illness, and I've already been labeled. And so I didn't give him my card, and that was kind of discouraging, but it was because I was already discouraged and I didn't feel like it would be a good idea. So this leads me to my next point, which is essentially how I start to believe the stigmas. So I literally spent, to continue this autobiographical mode, I literally spent like an hour talking with my mom about like how I feel about things, and I feel like, you know, it's not that I devalue what I do. I don't devalue what I do because I think that it's important. So I don't devalue my writing, for instance. I don't devalue my books. I don't devalue my work, my humanitarian work that I do with various people, such as the homeless. I don't devalue that, but I tend to devalue myself as a person because I've been told over and over again that I have a mental illness. So today, for instance, my case manager, well, actually, first, the doctor told me that I had personality disorder. I was like, wait, what? Because I'd never heard that before. And he was like, yes, it's in the charts. And I was like, well, then what do I do? And he was like, well, I can't help you. You have to talk to your therapist, because only therapy can help. Medications can't help. And I was just like really taken aback because I was like, how do I have personality disorder? And I look it up, and my mom described it really well and described it how like it seems that the problem with medicine is we just want to label everything, but how that leads to a lot of limitations and really limits us as people. But just the fact that they mentioned, but I was looking up what a personality disorder is, and it means that I have a hard time integrating in society, basically, and that I can't handle the demands of society. And that is really problematic because um, we live in a very stressful society that makes incredible demands on us, and that is not fair, and that it makes sense why many people have breakdowns. Um, and so it doesn't mean that I have personality disorder, but I find it really frustrating that my case manager and my doctor were quick to jump on that as a diagnosis when they'd never told me that before, ever. It had been a year that I'd seen my therapist, and he never brought up that I had personality disorder, or at least potentially did, because I don't think I do. I think that it's a misguided label, at least in this case. But even if I do have it, I mean, that's already a lot to take. I mean, it's already hard enough to have schizoaffective disorder, much less um, personality disorder when you don't even know anything about it. And I personally find it insulting that they think I have a hard time integrating into society because I think I do really well. I mean, there's not really much that I don't do. I mean, I do have trouble with the demands, but I think that everybody has trouble with the demands, and so it seems like a really pointless label. I want to describe it as a tautology, even though if that doesn't, even though that may not be the perfect word for it, but that's what it feels like to me. Um, it feels like a redundancy, I guess. Um, it's probably a better way to describe it. But to get to my bigger point, what I was saying was, I started to believe the stigmas around me, and so I literally talked for like my mom to talk with my mom for like an hour, like trying to essentially trying to understand like my mental disease, um, but or to understand like why I was feeling so down and why I was believing all of these stigmas, such as that like I'm basically a failure and that like I'm not doing anything with my life and all of these things when that's like not true. And my mom actually started mentioning all of these things that I do, and I was like, wow, I'd forgotten I've done that. And that's because I've been conditioned so much to think that I essentially don't do anything, and that's not fair because I'm buying the stigma of this label of my mental disease, which is that essentially I don't accomplish anything and I don't do anything. And that is a major disservice because essentially what happens is I allow society and I allow my mental illness to get in the way of what I can do and what my potential is. And I think that that's discouraging. It's empowering in the sense that I'm aware of it now and I'm going to try to move on. But it's discouraging because it's sad that I hear it all the time, that I hear these things all the time, and that people are saying all these things to me all the time, you know, implying my inherent worthlessness. because of my mental illness and simply because of my label. They don't care about the fact that, for instance, I've been interviewed to talk about my work with the homeless, or that I've written over 20 books and I've published five. None of that matters. All they can see is the label. And it kind of shows how like shallow society can be. But that doesn't mean that we can't actually be conditioned a certain way, and that doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect. And that's what I'm realizing is it has quite an effect. And then I'm starting to adopt these mentalities that people are projecting onto me, and that's really, really frustrating. Um, so these are some of my confessions. This is briefly autobiographical, but yeah, I mean, it's really discouraging to think about these things. And I just want to close by talking about kind of my experience last night. I was a little delusional. Yesterday I had trouble because I like literally wanted to jump in front of a car, and I knew it was a stupid idea, but like I literally wanted to make a scene. And like this is why I don't tell people this. So this is why this is a confession. But I don't tell people stuff like this because they think that I would literally do it, and they think I'm like some kind of psycho, and that just further feeds the stigma and the negative effects of having this label. So that's why I don't say it. But I'm just mentioning it just so that way I can communicate that like I do have irrational thoughts, but that like I do my best to keep them under control via my behavior. I'm of the existentialist notion that we can control our behavior pretty well. Granted, that doesn't change the biological factors that are out of control, but I think that we can condition ourselves to be a certain way. But anyway, so yesterday and last night I was struggling, and last night I kind of hit rock bottom or what I call absolute zero. Though it wasn't quite absolute zero because it was actually full of a surprising amount of wonder and curiosity. But my behavior was kind of eccentric because I was at a bar, and I was essentially like pulling out books and reading books and like putting them back in my backpack and walking around, getting comfortable in various spaces like on a stool or back in the corner, going into the bathroom occasionally to just like look in the mirror, and just like all these various things. But like it's kind of a happy experience because like I was letting like my what I consider my calm delusions to take reign, but it was also frustrating because I was overwhelmed and burdened by this overwhelming feeling of sadness, and that made things very, very difficult. And so essentially it was kind of a bittersweet experience, and it really my emotions can be very overpowering and overwhelming in a lot of ways. But I consider myself to do very well. I mean, for obvious reasons, I would never jump into a car. I would do my best not to make a scene. I never make scenes, actually, for that matter. And so, like, I'm not really the type to be dramatic. But it's just interesting that, like, my mental illness, like, you know, it causes me to think differently because it causes me to introject and internalize all the things that I'm feeling. Um, and and I want to find a way to communicate that. And so that's why I'm talking about these issues, because I feel like it's better than jumping in front of a car, for instance, or making a scene in public. You know, I feel like it's better to talk about it and to express it, because then hopefully people can have some kind of understanding, and it's a positive production rather than a negative production. Because the thing is, we have this emphasis due to the label of and the stereotypes of mental illness that it's always a negative production. So mental illness is always a negative thing. And that might be true, but the thing is, there needs to be more emphasis on the positive that comes out of it, and there needs to be more emphasis on the positive productions. And the reason, is simply for the fact that, like, because of the way that the conversation went today with the doctor, and the way that I've been treated, I'm literally buying into all of these stigmas and labels, and it's completely dragging me down, and that's not okay. And that's why we need to really focus on the positive productions. So yesterday, I like to see yesterday at the bar as a creative encounter with the world, a creative experience, even though nobody talked to me or even really acknowledged me. Nobody acknowledged me. It was still interesting to just kind of be in my head and just think about things. Um, so these are my confessions. I don't know if they will carry weight, but I wanted to at least communicate and express these concerns that I have and these experiences that I have, to try to relay what it's like to have a mental illness and why it's hard and why it can be very difficult, but how it can also be inspiring too. Again, this is Phoenix, and thank you.